Brazil's former president Jair Bolsonaro fails to appear at the Supreme Electoral Court on Thursday, where he faces charges which may bar him from holding public office for 8 years. The summit for the new Global Financial Pact started in France at the Palais Bourriard in Paris. The International Olympic Committee, IOC, decided on Thursday to maintain its ban on the International Boxing Association, which still fails to meet its expectations. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Marrero from the teleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We'll begin with the news. Stay with us. Brazil's former president Jair Bolsonaro fails to appear at the Supreme Electoral Court on Thursday, where he faces charges which might bar him from holding public office for 8 years. According to Portal G1, the former president decided to travel instead to Rio Grande do Sul to support the Liberal Party, of which he is a member ahead of the elections. The websites indicate that members of the Liberal Party hopes that Minister Cassio Nunes Marques, appointed by Bolsonaro to the Supreme Federal Court, will show his gratitude and vote in favor of the former president and avoid a 7-0 defeat. In Argentina, various social sectors ratified their support to the people of Jujuy after the repression against the protesters that rejected a constitutional reform imposed by the governor of the province, Gerardo Morales. President Alberto Fernández condemned the state violence in Jujuy and instructed the Ministry of Justice to analyze and promote actions of unconstitutionality of the articles of the reform, while the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights expressed his concern for the situation that the province of Jujuy is going through and warned Morales to avoid an escalation of violence. U.S. Coast Guard authorities said on Thursday that the Titanic-bound submersible that went missing on Sunday with 5 people on board suffered a catastrophic implosion, killing everyone on board. The announcement was made in a news briefing by U.S. Coast Guard Rear Admiral John Mayward, who detailed that tail gun and other debris from the missing submersible were found about 1,600 feet from the bow of the Titanic.
This morning, an ROV, or remote-operated vehicle, from the vessel Horizon Arctic discovered the tail cone of the Titan submersible approximately 1,600 feet from the bow of the Titanic on the seafloor. The ROV subsequently found additional debris. In consultation with experts from within the Unified Command, the debris is consistent with the catastrophic loss of the pressure chamber.
In the U.S., Hollywood writers and screenwriters rallied in Los Angeles on Wednesday, demanding a new labor agreement that includes paid guarantees and job security plans. The new demonstrations comes 15 days after the beginning of the strike. Protesters demand to be kept in the payroll beyond casual jobs and to receive higher payments. They denounced that although the demands of the profit of the contractors have increased in recent years, the fees and the guarantees of those working on the scripts have been constantly reduced. On Thursday, tropical storm Brett is expected to hit the eastern Caribbean island with strong winds and rains that could cause floodings and dangerous waves. Tropical storm Brett will bring strong winds and heavy rains to parts of the Leeward Islands later today and tonight. The National Hurricane Center said it is at 5 a.m. update. Brett has a winds of 112 kilometers per hour and is located about 320 kilometers east of Barbados, moving west at 24 kilometers per hour. Tropical storm force winds extend outward up to 185 kilometers from the center. Let's take a very short break now, but remember you can now follow us on our TikTok account as teleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Stay tuned for more news. Welcome back to From the South. The summit for a new global financing pact began in France on Thursday at the Palace Bourgade in Paris. The two-day event is hosting more than 300 high-level participants, head of states and government, international organizations, and representatives of civil society and the private sector. Deliberating at a speech during the opening session, French President Emmanuel Macron stated that aim of the summit is to lay the groundwork for a renewed financial system suited to the common challenges in the 21st century, such as fighting inequality and climate change and protecting biodiversity. In his participation in the summit of the new Global Financial Pact, Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel condemned the fact that Western powers continue to impose institutions to do not respond to the current needs of the peoples of the world.
It is unacceptable that most nations of the planet continue to have obsolete institutions imposed on them, generated during the Cold War and Bretton Woods, far from the current international configuration and designed to profit from the reserves of the South, perpetuate the imbalance, and apply specific recipes to reproduce a scheme of modern colonialism.
In his speech, the Cuban head of state also stated that within the framework of the current financial system, the foreign debt of the countries that make up the G77 plus China doubled the last decade.
Our countries are the ones that have seen their foreign debts practically double in the last 10 years. The ones that have had to spend $379 billion of their reserves to defend their currencies in 2022, almost double the amount of new special duties owed, rationed to them by the International Monetary Fund.
Mia Mottley, Premier of Barbados, was in the summit for a new global financial pact. She stated the importance of recognizing that the world cannot continue in the shadow of all imperial order.
I ask us today not to leave Paris without understanding that the bolstering of the political ambition that is required must secure transformation and not reform. And I ask us to ensure that those of us who are heads of government and heads of state recognize that the world cannot continue in the shadow of an old imperial order that does not see countries, does not feel countries, does not hear countries, and worse, does not see, feel, or hear people. I ask us today to recognize that we cannot come to Paris but let our directors go back to the IMF or the World Bank and it be business as usual. They do not act in their own interests. They act on behalf of our sovereign states.
Mia Mottley also called for putting the actions of multinational corporations on the table, and that what is required to stop climate change is an absolute reform of the current institutions that deal with the issue.
Simply relying and holding only governments accountable has run its course. And what is necessary now is for us to bring to the table also multinational corporations whose balance sheets dwarf more than 2/3 of the world's states. That is the world we have created out of the last century. What is required of us now is absolute transformation and not reform of our institutions. And that transformation is required because while the world knew since the 1890s that we were facing the warming of the climate, we chose not to heed the advice of scientists. And that which could have been done in more than a century is now being reduced to be done in less than a decade.
The government of China expressed on Thursday before the United Nations Human Rights Commission in Geneva its strong opposition to the disinformation related to Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. The Special Representative for Human Rights of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of China, Yang Xingqiu, denounced the behavior of certain Western countries of spreading false information and defaming his country. Yang stated that Beijing has promoted the protection of human rights and the free of comprehensive development of the people.
A few countries, including the United Kingdom, have repeatedly told lies and spread rumors, which has further exposed their political schemes and sinister intentions. China urged these countries to put aside their hypocrisy, arrogance, and prejudice, stop politicizing human rights issues, and stop turning human rights issues into someone's tools. And they should devote their energy to solving human rights problems of their own and truly promoting and protecting human rights.
We have more news coming up after a financial break, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English, there you will be able to watch our interviews, top stories, special broadcasts, and more. Hit the subscribe button and active the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. One financial break, don't go away. Welcome back. The International Olympic Committee, IOC, decided on Thursday to maintain its ban on the International Boxing Association, which still fails to meet its expectations. The decision to withdraw recognition of the International Boxing Association was reached upon the recommendations of the IOC's executive board, with 69 votes in favor, 1 against, and 10 abstentions. For the second consecutive time, the International Olympic Committee will be in charge of the boxing at the Olympic Games, whose next edition will be held next year in Paris. The International Boxing Association, ABA, was provisionally suspended in 2019 after several refereeing scandals during the 2016 Rio de Janeiro Games. The suspension remains during the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. The IOC has pointed out that the ABA the financial irregularities, a lack of transparency and rigor in the areas of governance, as well as anti-doping judges and refereeing problems. The International Boxing Association, EBA, said in a statement Thursday that the International Olympic Committee made a tremendous mistake by withdrawing the ABA's recognition. In the statement, the IBA accuses the International Olympic Committee of politicizing the issue and reminded that 82 years ago today, the fascists Germany launched an attack on the peaceful citizens of the Soviet Union, resulting in the escalation of war and devastating human tragedy. And in El Salvador, the Central American and Caribbean Games opened this Friday in San Salvador, a regional multidisciplinary event considered to be the oldest in the world. 24 hours before the opening ceremony, our correspondent Roberto Hugo Presa gave us an overview of the preparations and expectations for the sport festival.
Hundreds of workers are working against the clock to complete the renovation of the sports center. The organizing committee for the 24th edition of the event says that despite the short time available to adapt the 22 venues, everything is expected to be ready.
Normalmente, organizar unos Juegos Centroamericanos y el Caribe le lleva al país a la ciudad.
Usually, it takes an average of 4 to 6 years for the country or host city to organize the Central American and Caribbean Games, and we are taking on this responsibility in just under a year and a half.
Responsabilidad con un poquito menos de año y medio.
The Gonzales Magical Stadium is one of the places for the competitions, and although the renovation work was not completed 24 hours ago, the opening ceremony is scheduled to take place here on Friday afternoon.
But as far as the sports facilities are concerned, 100% of them will be ready. That is to say, the competition, the doping area, the dressing rooms, the bathrooms, the stands, the press area, all the facilities are complete.
37 sports, 53 disciplines, and around 5,500 athletes will take part in the competitions. Most of the sports delegation have arrived.
Expectations are high here. There is a mix of established athletes and young athletes. These games also serve as a preparation and to be able to continue evaluating these sporting reserves for the next cycles, not only for the 24th, but we are also evaluating athletes for the 28th and 32nd Olympic Games.
The government has guaranteed security, while the Congress has declared a day off for public employees on the day of the opening ceremony and has approved half-time working hours to allow them to watch the games.
The truth is that I am very excited to see the athletes who will represent us and the people who will also come to represent those from other countries.
The games will open this Friday and close on Saturday, July 8th. At the same time, the competitions will take place in the Dominican Republic, which is the head office for this regional competition.
Roberto Hugo Presa, teleSUR, El Salvador.
Russia Security Council Secretary Nikolai Patrushev revealed on Thursday results of its country's last counteroffensive against the Ukrainian forces. The announcement was made at a meeting with President Vladimir Putin and members of the Council. The senior official said the action took place between June the 4th and June the 21st, and that 246 Ukrainian tanks had been destroyed, together with 595 armored combat vehicles, 279 combat artillery guns and mortars, 42 multiple rocket launchers, and 2 anti-aircraft missile systems, among other military equipment. On Thursday, Qatari Prime Minister of Foreign Affairs Mohammed bin Abdullah bin Hassim Al Thani met with Russian President Vladimir Putin. During the meeting, Al Thani stressed that Doha's intentions to boost cooperations and coordination with Moscow in various fields, stressing that Qatar and Russia have joint interests in the sphere of energy and food security. On his part, President Vladimir Putin stressed that there is a growth potential in trade relations between the two countries.
At present, bilateral trade figures are relatively low in absolute terms, but there is solid and untapped growth potential, and we expect that the development of effective proposals for its implementation will be taken up by our Intergovernmental Commission.
The government of Mali has called on the United Nations to remove its peacekeepers force, MINUSMA, from the territory, calling it a failure to meet security challenges. Although many people agreed with the government's positions, others, especially in the city of Timbuktu, warned against the peacekeeping forces' withdrawal, voicing concern for its local economy. Rebel groups have been responsible for destroying Timbuktu's Asia's mausoleum, a priceless heritage from the golden era of Islamic expansion. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also use us on our socials. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram as well. For Telesur English, I'm from the South, I'm Ana Marrero. Thank you for watching.